Today's video is about drawing cartoons using Photoshop, and specifically we're looking at how to use layers most effectively. Here's what you'll learn. You'll learn the ideal number of layers for drawing simple cartoons quickly. You'll also learn what order to put your layers in and why that's really important. You'll learn how and why to vary certain layer opacities. And finally, I'll give you a heads up on some of the pitfalls of using layers and how best to avoid them. Let's start with how many layers. If you look in the bottom corner here, where you see the layer screen, which tells you what's happening with your layers, you'll see that I've got my background layer, which is just the standard one. Whenever you open a file in Photoshop, it'll give you a background layer, and that's it. You have to decide what else you're going to get. And then I've got 3 layers on top of my background layer. I've got the color layer, I've got the sketch layer, and I've got the outline layer. So I'm just going to go and toggle all of them so they're visible. This little eye next to the layer shows you whether it's visible or not. And let's play on and off with them. So if I switch off everything except the outline, you can see there's the black line art for my cartoon. Here, let's go and put in the next layer underneath that. You can see there was a sketchy layer underneath that I was working with. And then you can see the very bottom, just above the background, is the color layer. So I work with my sketch to start off with. That's where I do all my rough work as I conceptualize. Then I go in and put in the outline, firm everything up and make it a little more polished. And then I fill in the color and finally go and just stop looking at the sketch. So does it even matter what order your layers are in? And yes, it does matter. It matters very much. So I'm going to show the sketch layer again, just so that you can see that sketchiness. And you can see that the sketch is basically the ham in the sandwich between the outline and the color. And the way layers work is they literally stack as if this were ground level. The next layer on top is color, sketch is on top of that, and outline is the very top layer. So if I take sketch out so we don't look at it, let's just see what happens when I switch around the color and the outline. Watch what happens in the cartoon. Do you see how here you're starting to get a sort of muddy look? So instead of having crisp black line art, some parts of it look as if someone's put some makeup or something over the top of them. And that's because now, instead of the outline sitting on top of the color is sitting on top of the outline. If I move it back like this, you get the crispness again. So at the end of the day, the order does matter, because when you start off in your sketch layer here, and you sketch away like crazy. Then you add a layer on top of that to get your outline. And then you come back and work in your color. Finally, switching off the sketch so that you get the crisp outline again. Now let's take a look at opacity and why it's a good thing to vary the opacity in at least one of your layers. So if you look at my outline layer, the opacity is 100%. Same goes for color, the opacity is 100%. It's only a sketch which is different, and you can see there that my opacity for my sketch is 20%. Now, why is that? Well, you can see that my sketch is all in gray, and if I make that layer 20%, then I can just carry on using my thick black outlining thing. Instead of having to fiddle with the opacity of my brush, I just go and change the opacity of the layer, and then everything in there ends up quieter, as it were. So here I've changed it back up to 100%. You can see there's that very, very rough sketchiness that I started off with. I'll take it back down to 20%. And the reason that it's good to have it at 20% is that you want that sketching there when you go to put your line art in. But you want it to be pale enough that it just gives you an idea, and then you can go and put in your smoothness rather than the sketch dominating. Some people like to do their sketching in a pale blue, say, but I just find it much easier to use a 20% opacity. Effectively, it gives me gray even though I'm using a black brush, and then I can take it from there. Now we come to the final part of our video, which is avoiding the pitfalls of using layers. So the main pitfall of using layers is to use too many layers. And you really don't need more than 3 if you're doing simple cartoons. If you're doing massive digital sketching or painting, that's different. But cartoons like this, just the 3 layers is enough. Always label your layers. So give them a name, something descriptive that you know what it's about. Because otherwise, if you just have, the default is it'll be layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. And yes, you'll remember what's what, but it's just easier if you've got a meaningful name for your layer. The other pitfall that I find is that you end up working in the wrong layer. So what if I end up applying color in my outline layer? Let's go and have a look at what happens. So I'm going to just start putting in some color in my outline layer, and you can see that it ends up drawing over my line art. Even if I'm using my color pen, color brush, which is only 20%, I end up coloring over my line art. So if you do the wrong thing in the wrong layer, you soon end up with all sorts of things muddled. And instead of being able to quickly go and just say, I want to correct my color in here, and being able to correct it, you get color mixed up with outlines. Then when you need to erase the color, you'll end up erasing the black outline as well. And before you know it, oh, you've got all sorts of drama going on. So let's have a look here. If I go in here and erase my outline, I'm not damaging the color. Similarly, if I go in here and erase my color, I'm not damaging my outline. So you need to be sure that you're working in the appropriate layer, otherwise you're going to get incredibly frustrated because you'll end up trying to erase something and erase 2 layers of something rather than just 1. Did you like this video? If you did, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And if you'd like even more tips that I only share on email, head on over to my website www.alisonbeere.com and sign up for email updates.